If your child got into a fight at school, if they were being bullied, if they fell behind in their maths class, you probably want to know about that. It's your right as a parent to know things like that. Most teachers would surely agree. But many British schools think you have no right to know if your child decides to transition to another gender. So much so that the Department for Education today issued detailed guidance for schools telling them they've got this wrong. A new parents first approach will advise that in all but the most exceptional cases, they should be urgently informed if their child asks to be known as another gender. The guidance says teachers and pupils should not be pressured into using a child's new pronouns and should not be punished if they get them wrong. All completely sensible. But what's extraordinary to me is not this development, it's that it all had to be said in the first place. For too long, we've made policy by fear of causing offence. The consequences of that were laid bare earlier this year when that infamous video leaked of a teacher scolding pupils for refusing to accept their classmate was a cat.
I just said if they want to identify as a cat or something, then they're like genuinely unwell.
Then they've gone
they're crazy.
You were questioning their identity.
I wasn't a question. I was just saying about the gender. I didn't say anything about them.
But where did you get this idea from? There's only two genders. Gender is not linked to the parts that you were born with. Gender is about how you identify. There is actually three biological sexes because you can be born intersex. You can be born with male and female body parts or hormones. In terms of gender, there are lots of genders.
If you have a vagina, you're a girl. If you have a penis, you're a boy.
Yeah.
But you identify with the gender of the sexual order that you're born with, or you're weird. That's basically what you're saying.
Yeah.
Which is really despicable.
Despicable. Think about that. Despicable that you would identify as the sex you were born to. Well, those teenagers were smart enough to express a view that any sensible person in the world would agree with. I certainly would. For that, as we just heard, they were branded despicable and told they should go to another school. That's how schools are pandering to a pupil who says they're a cat. We can imagine how they're policing preferred pronouns. In the most part, this isn't about children identifying as pets, so it must be extraordinarily difficult for any child who's genuinely transgender to go through that process at such a fragile time in their lives. But that only strengthens the case for involving their parents. Pandering to this lobby led to the scandal at the Tavistock Clinic, where hundreds of kids were given powerful puberty blockers despite having very complex mental health problems. Many of the children were simply gay. Well, yesterday we learned that the Royal Yacht Association has decreed we should say person overboard instead of man overboard, and that prisoners are being routinely referred to as they instead of he or him. Prisoners, insisting on their preferred pronouns. These things matter. If a form of language is imposed on us, it imposes the worldview that goes with it, whether we agree with it or not. It's exactly the kind of pandering that leads to schools being scared to tell parents these fundamental things about their children's lives.